In tonight's edition, we're going to be looking at the breaking news in town. Did Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings and the ANC actually change, alter, modify, whatever verb you may use, the CPP framework document? That's the news. This topic was selected a week ago, but as of today, we have gotten more information, so we're going to go into it about the CPP framework document and its alleged modification. Now the report is out, and so we're going to go into it. We're going to be discussing, and so welcome today to Top Talking Thursday. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. With me tonight to discuss, did Mr. Alexander Cummings and the ANC actually change the CPP framework document? We have joining us from Philadelphia, our chief political analyst, Mr. Wilmot Cooney. Mr. Cooney, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. Always a pleasure to be here.
Also from Philadelphia is our political analyst, Mr. Mohammed Sharif, a proud alumni of WAPLO Institute. Mr. Sharif, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis.
Last but not the least is our policy analyst, Mrs. Carl Famule, who is joining us from Metro Atlanta. Carl, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
It's good to be here.
By the way, Carl happens to be a member of the Unity Party. Mr. Cooney is an unapologetic seditious. They call him the CDC Pape. And the guy from WAPLO Institute is independent. Ladies and gentlemen, we say once again, I say welcome to Focus on Liberia. How you all doing today? Mr. Cooney, let's start with you. How's your day?
My day is fine. You know, I had to rush to work to be here, so we like to be true to commitments that we make, at least.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
Great. Carl, how you doing?
Always doing well. Always excellent.
Great. Any news from WAPLO Institute in Kilipo County, Mr. Sheriff?
I am doing fabulous. All praises to the Almighty. Of late, I have not gotten any news from WAPLO Institute.
Thank you. We want to be discussing the CPP framework document and its alleged alteration. Now, the report is out that indeed the framework document was changed by Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings of the ANC. So to start the discussion, I'm going to just play a little clip of the CPP chairperson, Senator Yambli Kanga Lawrence, giving the CPP report or the findings from the committee set up to investigate whether or not the framework document was changed. Take a listen.
Fellow citizens and members of the press, this press conference is herewith called to submit to you all findings of the report on the complaint regarding the altering of the CPP framework document filed at the National Election Commission. Fellow Liberians, on May 19, 2020, chairpersons and political leaders of 4 political parties, the All-Liberian Party, the Alternative National Congress, the Liberty Party, the Unity Party, signed a framework agreement, thereby establishing the Collaborating Political Parties, CPP. The FA signed on May 19, 2020 via Zoom, went through all of the rigorous legal and fundamental procedures ranging from validation to review and ratification by the respective executive committees of the 4 parties. On the same day of the signing of the FA, Mr. Alexander B. Cummings and the ANC, in line with the CPP rotational leadership, proportional tenure took over the leadership of the CPP. 5 copies of the FA were signed and given to the leadership of the CPP.
Well, I believe most of you saw or listened to the report earlier today. Let me start with you, Mr. Sharif, and then we have copies. We'll try to send copies around of the framework report. You listen, and what's your initial reaction to the report that the framework document was indeed structurally and content-wise changed, and that Mr. Alexander Cummings and the ANC are responsible for those changes, for those unauthorized changes, if I may put it that way? What's your reaction, Mr. Sharif?
Yeah. So if, as reported, and I have no reason to doubt that that is the case, that this is what Mr. Cummings did. The question I have is why he did not need to do this, and because of this, he now has some serious explanation to do. He has to now come out with a position statement, at the very least, to explain to the Liberian people why. Because I don't see any genuine reason why he will engage in this practice. And I am very disappointed in Mr. Alexander Cummings because of this. So he has been on the airwaves and, in different forums talking about reform, right? So this is not how you're going to reform the Liberian society. If Liberians were voting on the issues, this would really be a big deal. But we're talking about a country, we're talking about an electorate that does not vote on issues. So Liberian people are not going to wake up tomorrow morning to say, that because Mr. Cummings altered some portions of the framework agreement, that they're not going to vote for him. Mr. Cummings has other serious issues for which he has to, plan to counter. Mr. Cummings, from the rest of his collaborators, from what we hear, from what they say about Mr. Cummings, is that he does not have a political base. And what they're saying is that the core language is that Mr. Cummings has no sort of ethnic connections to drop back on, to so that in terms of other, if you look at other candidates, they can always go back to certain geographic regions. They can always go back to their base. Liberian politics is can sometimes be tribal, can sometimes delve into the realm of tribalism. And so you have Mr. Weah, who can rely on the people of Lofa County to vote for him. Even if he does not win, he can always rely on his home base. This is how Liberian politics is. George Weah can't rely on, portions of the Southeast to vote for him. What can Mr. Cummings rely on? So I would submit to you that Mr. Cummings has other serious issues that have nothing to do with altering the framework agreement. Because as I mentioned, the Liberian people are not going to wake up tomorrow morning to say, hey, I'm not going to vote for him because look at what he did. Because you have to remember that this is a very, very corrupt country. You have a leadership that is very corrupt. George Weah has done far worse than what Mr. Cummings just committed. And so George Weah got elected with all the incompetence and the malfeasance and all of that. There are people that are still supporting George Weah with what's going on. You heard what the EU ambassador said about
we'll come to the details.
It is the dirtiest capital city in Africa, and this is a shame.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Kone on your reaction to the CPP framework alteration report.
Well, no, Dennis, I mean, as expected, I'm really not surprised. And to be honest, I really don't care one way or the other how they treat their framework document. But the way the business is being conducted, it speaks to a larger issue. What you see in the CCP right now confirm what we've always said: the deception, the dishonesty, the laziness of the so-called intelligentsia elite and their social partners to do anything right for the country. That's what you're seeing emerging. So whatever way they put it, I really don't care. It's just confirming views that I've already, hold firm about them. These people should be the best. They're supposed to be the cream. They are coming together, and for 3 years, 2019, 2020, 2021, they are still stuck in this framework document argument. So whatever they want to do is, that's their fight. That's their fight. But it just points to the failure of this particular brand of people that I talk about every night on this platform. The other thing, little thing that, that is curious for me, and maybe a lot of people that didn't pick it up, is how this whole investigation started. And I'm kind of concerned. The ALP leader said he had an inside source at the election commission that gave him this document. I was thinking that there should be an open process for political leaders to seek documents from the election commission instead of secretly obtaining documents from the commission. And I think we should all be concerned because election issues, political party issues are very sensitive. If we have people at the election commission secretly giving information about the commission to other people, I think that should be concerning. But as usual in Liberia, we don't pay attention to these things to the extent that we benefit from it. We don't pay attention to these things. My expectation is that any political leader, for that matter, that want to follow up on an issue with the National Election Commission, there should be an established protocol. But it's kind of like hair raising for me for somebody to say, oh, I got a contact who gave me this information. And based on the information from that contact, we now have a full-blown investigation. But as I said, it doesn't surprise me. These people have never surprised me. For I've witnessed the decades and the decades of misrule in our country. Look, listen, what is alarming for most of us is the fact that we are already in this culture where even laws that are passed by the legislature are tampered with at the level of the executive. There is this discrepancy between laws that the legislatures pass. By the time they are printed to handbill, the laws are changed. And this is the kind of climate that is prevailing. So if these people can, play with their own document and pick up things and put things, that is scary for me. And I think a lot of Liberians are taking notice of this development.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you just joined us, this is Tough Talking Thursday, and we are speaking or discussing the changing or the alteration or modification, the illegal, unauthorized alteration of the CPP framework document. All fingers point to Mr. Alexander Cummings and the ANC. The report is finally out. The chair of the CPP read the report and find Mr. Cummings liable. Cole, what's your take? You member of the CPP. The document says Cummings did something wrong.
So I'm a member of the Unity Party, and the Unity Party is involved in this CPP. And I have been very vocal about my, I've been very concerned about the way that the process has been set up, and I've been very vocal about it internally from the inception. I've had, my personal opinion put out there. Has it been listened to? Have people listened to me? No, of course not. I listened to Mr. Cooney, and I think that, he's very good at behaving as though he's not a Liberian, behaving as though Tahitians are not Liberians, behaving as though people's culture and their upbringing comes from their political party, and not from the society that they were raised in. That being said, specific to this framework document, I have an issue with the entire document in its entirety. The findings, I believe, are correct based on what I've read. It is clear that someone did alter some parts of the final amended document after the lawyers reviewed and submitted this to the National Elections Commission. And they did so for the purpose of benefiting the ANC. That is clear in the report. I have no reason to think that it's not correct information based on everything that I've looked at. And I also am incredibly disappointed in not only Mr. Cummings, but all the leaders in the ANC. And this is why. I don't want to believe that Mr. Cummings went and altered the document. I think it's people that he supervises, that he should have, some understanding of what they're doing. And I think that they may or may not have done it with his knowledge, but he's going to bear the political responsibility. I think it would be a good thing for him to conduct his own investigation if he isn't already aware of what happened, and expose these people. We get to this thing where if somebody's wearing our jersey, we can't criticize them. It's embarrassing and shameful to watch. But overall, besides the document being altered, which it clearly was, the fact that it was possible to alter the document is a bigger problem for me. The fact that these people, responsible, educated professionals, got together, and a senator, a longtime public servant, a former vice president, a former top executive of one of the most successful corporations in history, a very successful local business person, one of the most successful business people in Liberia. All four of these people signed off on a very important document, didn't initial the pages, didn't follow any administrative protocol, and it was just done in such a haphazard way. Typically, when you see people who are competent conduct themselves incompetently, it is intentional. They're trying to do something, and they're trying to do it, and they're trying to, thwart a process. Also, I mean, they say that there's these lawyers. If you read the report, the lawyers are not named. And, lawyers typically don't operate anonymously. They usually, own up to their legal work that they do. They're not named in the document, and it's probably for good reason, because it's an embarrassment. It's a legal embarrassment. The entire amended document in the first place. I looked at it. I said, what kind of lawyers were these? And they're naming all these big names. A whole former Supreme Court justice and all got named. And you wonder to yourself, were they acting in the capacity of a legal advisor, or were they politically motivated? Were they just making sure that the people who asked them to review the documents had their goals and intentions satisfied in the best possible way? That's how it looks. Because if it was sincere legal advice, they were going to scrap that document and say, you know what, this is really not how collaborations are established. Let's go back to the drawing board. The fact that that did not happen means that even the lawyers were politically motivated. And this is not a unique situation to the Unity Party. I would love to see the collaboration, the documentation that created a coalition for democratic change. I'm sure it's even more embarrassing. I'm sure it says everyone should worship Weah, nobody should ever, criticize him and all kind of nonsense. But this is the country we come from. And for Mr. Cooney, just one last thing, for Mr. Cooney to try to say, this is the educated, look, this is not about education or not education. This is about ethics and conduct. And to say that only uneducated people have ethics is nonsense. Education is in fact one of the things that lifts us out of, the savagery of not knowing right from wrong, whether it be education in our homes, our churches, our mosques, or our schools. So education is not, whatever was the word, corruption is not the property of the educated. It's the property of the unethical.
And I I have one question for you, Carl, because you strike a very important point about, okay, this is not how collaborations are formed. To your knowledge, how was the CPP brought together? Was there any criteria set as to who becomes member of the CPP, or did it just happen by chance? Because when I was going through this, that's the first thing that occurred to me. I mean, why are there just four political parties? Could there be 15? Could there be 10? I mean, how was this put together? If you have any knowledge.
So back in 2018, Boykai Jalaba and a lot of others that, you know, Darius Delon, myself, Dr. Adam Dole, Muna Fahad, many, many people, Manapanka Domu, um, Jacob Jala, Mo Ali, Mariah Yakula, Mariah, who else? Plenty of us. I can't even name all. Plenty of us were in a group. We started a WhatsApp group called Opposition Working Group. Boykai Jalaba started it and brought all of us together. And at first we were just, kind of saying, "Oh my God, George Weah is president. What will it do?" The world is.
You are licking your wounds.
Yeah, we were just like, Lord have mercy. So we got in there, we started cussing one another. We said, oh, that because of nuclear, we lost the election, all kind of things. But at the end of the day, we decided to put our thinking caps on and say, hey, listen, it's not the end of the world. Let's figure out, let's assess what happened, what went wrong, what went right. It wasn't long before we figured out that had the opposition, the now new opposition, right? Because Unity Party used to be the ruling party, but had those who lost the election, had they united during the runoff election, their numbers would have been greater and they would have decimated the CDC. But because of this unity, we didn't. So it's logic. So it was decided at that point that we were going to figure out a way to bring everyone together and start planning a strategy to not only bring people together, but for a good purpose. So there was a huge sentiment for us to do this. Let me back up a little bit. One of the reasons we're doing this too, some of us were motivated by the idea when Weah came in, he started dismantling the institutions, decent institutions, and removing people who were specifically educated by the government to serve the government, removing technocrats from key positions. And so this was almost like a junta had taken over. It wasn't really, he was behaving as if it was a coup d'etat, removing civil servants, fired everyone down to the HR. So this was what motivated me. I said, this is frightening. Why is he behaving as though these people serving these positions, some of whom, he itself working government, it was horrible, and replacing them with their partisans. That did not happen when Ellen took over. And it was shocking. So everybody started talking, and one thing led to another. Everyone went and met at Mariah Yakula's house that was on the ground. Those of us that were in the States met with them via conference call. And we decided to have talks with the leaders of the political parties and talk about doing a collaboration or putting people together. And that's where it came from. At that time, ALP was not a part of the process. ALP came in later for reasons I don't care to discuss on this program right now, but one day I will. So that's how the whole inception of it. And so Boyka Jalaba Moali went back to Unity Party. Mariah was in Unity Party at the time. Oh, I forgot to mention Ta Wongbi and Iman Dolake were in ANC. It was Ta Wongbi that, basically held Mariah's hand and introduced her to Cummings, and then Mariah started working with Cummings and then became a member of ANC. But originally she was aligned with Unity Party. So the bottom line was, it was pretty fluid. There was a lot of cooperation and people were getting along. Even some of our early candidates, like Cornelia Tokba-Kura, was recommended by Ta Wongri from ANC to the Unity Party, say, hey, push this girl in on the ticket, because they were friends. So people were not really so much concerned about political party the way that they are now. The rivalry came in because of the flawed basis and the people that were sitting at the table being short-sighted
Yeah.
and not realizing that, these two men were going to want to be president, and how were we going to mitigate this? Another conflict that came in with the formation of the CPP was this idea that they should just select candidates. For example, just get up out of nowhere and just say, okay, well, Cornelia is going to be on the ticket and nobody objects. They just put her on the ticket. There's no process of competition. Nobody else has an opportunity to put their hat in the race. It has happened with every single election that the CPP has held. And it's because of the flaws in the way that they structured this framework document and the mentality that they had when they entered it. So for a lot of us who were there at the very beginning, we were not at the table to help to structure and push a correct agenda forward.
Thank you.
As with, just really quick, as with many things in Liberia, when people feel that they're sitting at a table, they're seated at a table, they don't want to let anyone else in anymore because they don't want to give up that power. And even if they're not competent to do the things that they're being asked to do, they still hoard that opportunity for themselves, as if, somebody was being paid or something, to put this together. It was all voluntary, but that's how they conducted themselves. And that's how we got here.
Thank you. And I asked that because, the way things are put together. Mr. Cooney, you've been part of several Liberian organizations, including political parties. To me, even the whole idea of changing framework documents speaks to the fact that, most of the time the way we do things, right? We are 10 persons, we're supposed to work on a document, and one person will do it and say, oh man, just do it. I mean, I am like surprised that even at that level, that the signature, the way they come up with things, doesn't show that it is really thorough. That was the surprising thing to me. So I wasn't surprised that this kind of thing with document changing can happen. There were allegations in the LP and now the CPP. Well, what's your take? Is it people just don't care, or one person doing these things and they have to discover this 6 months later?
Yeah, let me just make a quick clarification before I answer that to something that my sister said. Look, when the issues in Liberia, the issue that we face is not just limited to people who are educated. And again, we're not anti-education, but I think there is sometimes a sense of frustration when people who are believed to be the most prepared, the most competent, people that are supposed to have the requisite skill, when they take center stage in our country and they mess up in such a way like they never even been to school before. And then you begin to ask yourself, what kind of education these people have? That's the question we keep asking. But nobody says corruption, all of those things are only educated people. But what we say is that it is us that's supposed to set the standard for our country. It is us that's supposed to look at our country in a serious way and be the pace setter for people to follow. But every time when our people give us the opportunity, we screw up, like they screw up with this whole framework document. And back to your point, yes, I've been part of many organizations. There are times you even constitute a committee. The laziness on the committee starts. Nobody wants to really pay attention to the work of the committee, but they just want their name to be, inscribed on the final product of the committee. There are so many Liberians, they got their signature on different constitutions. You ask them, quote your constitution, or in a constitution. So it is, that's what you see. That is being displayed here. I mean, people, and sometimes we develop this kind of trust. Like, we say some of these things are societal. Oh yeah, Kou, Mohammed, Kuni is supposed to do the thing. Oh, it says Kou, we trust you, man. Just do it. And then she's doing it, she's doing it. We say, oh, she will do it right. And then nobody really cares. But I'm saying a very serious document for political collaboration that actually make that group a potential government in waiting. I think that there should be a more serious attention paid to that. I'm asking myself, where are the aides to these political leaders, to the leaders of these parties? Because the aides are the smart ones. They are very alert to catch things, prepare documents, at some point in our life, we operated at that level. The various peace accords in Liberia, especially the security component, they were not drafted by the head of state. What they do, they just sign. But those things were crafted at the technical level by people who supposed to craft them, and then you carry to the heads of state, and then they sign. So I'm asking, where were the technocrats in these institutions that's supposed to really work together to make sure that this document reflected the wishes and aspirations of the collaboration? Where were they? Everybody started back and said, oh, okay.
You heard Cole, right? She said when they got at the table, they stood at the door. Nobody else come in.
That's it. So apparently, everybody might have, giving their trust to Mr. Cummings. Oh yeah, again, the clean man. The man got no record. The man a cool man. The man, so hey, he will do the best that he can do. And so this is why we have this fallout. But it is something that is in the Liberian community. It's something that you find in organizations. Come on, inaugural committee, you put people together. They don't care to work. Maybe that 1 or 2 persons will work on that committee. The rest of the people want their name listed in the program. I was on the inaugural committee. Mm-hmm. So it is this kind of laziness sometimes that will carry to these things that can lead to this, results like the one we're having. But the most important point, again, the CCP as a potential government in waiting, we always say that they should develop a vision, an alternative vision that would be better for the country. Yeah. Apparently, from everything that put them together, it was not a new vision for Liberia. It was not a new direction for Liberia. It was all about power, how for them to win political power. That was the motivating force. Even the first document they crafted, you can only get a job if you're visible. So the motivation there was power. The motivation was our country may go in this direction. What is the vision that we will use as an organizing principle to bring Liberians together, even those who are not here now, but that will bring Liberians together? The primary concern was how for this person to win, be senator, how the person will be represented, then how when the time comes out, we'll all come and grab that big power part that in Georgia, we throw it down, and then we take the government. That's the only thing we see. And that's the thing. There's no disagreement on vision here. There's disagreement on positioning for power. That's why they got in the framework document. Is there a philosophy that they disagreeing with? No. Every position is who will be what, how the person will be. You changing terminal illness to good health because somebody want to go talk about my woman pacemaker. So all of these kind of things. So terminal, the first document says terminal. Everybody know when you get terminal sickness, you can't go to no primary. So why you go change the thing from terminal to good health? So Tankana, you will go make propaganda against my woman, say my woman get pacemaker, so my woman in good health. So these are the kind of little trickery and things that go around.
And that's the question I have for Mr. Sherry, because to me, going through the framework document, those changes don't make any sense. I don't really see how they really benefit Mr. Cummings if he's changing it. So why will you change something that doesn't make any sense? Let's say you change incumbent to incumbency. You change good health from terminal illness to good health. I mean, what is it really in the long term? What is it going to do? Okay, so it comes back to the motive. Mr. Cummings, if he actually did what he's being accused of, what really is he trying to accomplish here? Or was he just lazy and didn't really follow through? And it also baffles me in how, four people, and say, oh, this was the chairman's responsibility. The chairman's supposed to do this. He was the one that's supposed to do this one. He was supposed to make sure he sent it around. He's supposed to make sure he did this. He didn't do that, and he submitted it. And 6 months later, and you just waking up to it. What have you been doing, Mr. Sherry?
Yeah, so, there's a lot to unpack there. So let me, first, address something that Mr. Cooney mentioned. He talked about the laziness in the Liberian society. And Liberians, we haven't demonstrated, a lot of us have not demonstrated that we are hard-working, strong people. there's this laziness in our community. You look at our diaspora organizations. What do you have? Someone wants to be called Honorable so and so, Honorable, Doctor so and so, but they don't do anything at all. So you put them on a committee. That's the end of it. So we've all been there. So that is so true that for one of the few times that I'm going to actually commend Mr. Cooney for saying that. Now, having said that, his persistent attack on the intelligentsia, I have to push back on that because somehow he has been consistent in landing everything at the feet of the so-called intelligentsia. But I will submit that corruption, inefficiency, and malfeasance in Liberian society has not just been the work of the intelligentsia, has not just been the work of the educated class. It has been individuals who are uneducated, like George Weah, individuals who are, we saw what happened in 1980. The government, in 1980, from 1980 to 1990, was worse in terms of corruption than previous administrations. Now we have George Weah, while Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was accused of corruption. We have George Weah, who is more corrupt. And George Weah is not a highly educated person. Although somewhere on YouTube, they said that George Weah is counted among, the highly educated Liberians, but I will argue that that is false. That is not true. So George Weah is not among the educated leaders in Africa, but he is one of the most corrupt. So corruption, all of these inefficiencies and corruption is not just limited to the educated elite. So coming back again to your question about why did he do this? And this is what I'm pointing out. Why did he do this? One of the plausible explanations that I can give you, Dennis, is that Mr. Cummings is fighting so hard. He is trying so hard to, it's like his life depend on this. Like this time around, I have to get this. I have to win this. And he's fighting so hard. He's doing those things. The other day there was a video circulating on social media with his shirt, his t-shirt collar was up. He was acting in our Liberian term like a bigger boy. You don't need to do any of this. And then he goes places. He tried to belong. He tried to force himself to do things. So what he did now is he tries so hard, and I think that he was ill-advised, I think, by some supporters around him, by some advisors who probably and I'm not sure if this to be the case, but it's possible that he was ill-advised to do this. That one of the chances that perhaps the chance that he had, because let's face it, let's face it, he has he doesn't have a good chance at the nomination. He does not. Right now, with the CPP the way it is, JNB seem to be the one who is really in the lead. If you poll Liberians today, if you poll the opposition today, JMB seem to be in the lead. However, I have been on this show. I have argued before. I have said before that the most prepared of the candidates has to be Mr. Cummings. But with what just happened, Mr. Cummings has left himself a lot of explaining to do. And so it's puzzling to me. Why do you do this? Why do you change certain things? How is it going to benefit him in the long run? So he has some explaining to do.
Yeah, and let's look at two things: terminal illness and good health. You would think that good health is more appropriate, right? It's the right, because you can use. So if you want to make that change, why does it have to be surreptitious?
Yes. So I agree with you 100%. A good health seem to be the proper word, the proper terminology, and instead of terminal, because the way the initial framework document was crafted is as if, okay, so if you leave it open that way, so you're trying to say that anybody, the only thing that would disqualify you is terminal health. That was too broad to me. You know, good health seemed to be seemed to be appropriate, but why would you do that surreptitiously? And that is my question.
Thank you. And Carl, another thing that was changed according to the report is it moved the consensus date. It's like by this time we should already have a consensus. If not, then we go to the primary. That was changed too. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, this is a major timeline. How will one person change that and expect the rest of the people to go by? Again, these things don't make any sense to me, Carl.
So I'm not going to say that there was a motive, and I'm not convinced that Cummings was aware that the documents were altered. But I know who does know that would have known that the documents were altered, and that would be Aluscious Toll, the other ANC lawyer that was on the committee, Deeply, I can't pronounce his name, for sure, had to have known. Whether they were doing it because Cummings told them to do it, or whether they advised Cummings that that's what they were going to do, or if they just did it, I don't know. There's no way for me to know that. That needs to, Cummings needs to do that his internal investigation. The fact that they're not doing so makes me, raises a red flag. But let's talk about the consensus deadline. So if you have a deadline and people don't meet that deadline, and because they think it's later, and you can go back to NEC and say, oh no, NEC, they're trying to, mess this up. We have a deadline, y'all bring the document, we filed at NEC. It would be too late at that point to go back and change things, right? Because it's already filed with the government. So now we have to go to primary, with the other parties not realizing that the deadline had already passed. This game has been played multiple times throughout the whole CPP process. This time it's just that it was written in a document and submitted to NEC without the knowledge of the others. But they're quick to do that deadline game. They did the same thing in NIMBA with this current primary. When candidates wanted to run, they told them that the deadline had already passed because ANC had SUA already going to go run. So they had a quick say, "Oh, we set the deadline inside the WhatsApp group, so y'all can't, nobody else can run." So this is the kind of
how can just one group control a deadline for a collaboration?
It's not that one group controlled the deadline. So really, what happened was they had all decided to divide the counties among the political parties, and they did this at their little table.
Right.
And it was decided that ANC would get NIMBA, the next election in NIMBA, so that if Jeremiah Kuhn won the senatorial seat and the other seat became vacant, if Edith lost to Jeremiah Kuhn in District 1 and NIMBA became vacant, that ANC would automatically get it. It was decided that Unity Party will automatically get Bone County because of whatever. I mean, this is the kind of thing that has been going on repeatedly. Bomi County, CPP is going to put up the candidate that Edwin Snow says CPP should put up. Nobody's going to fight that. Nobody's going to contest. The same thing happened in Grand Cape Mount County. Other United partisans, other partisans from ANC wanted to go, but no, we're going to post Daba Vapla. We want to hear nothing from nobody. All y'all go sit down. Daba going. No process. Even if Mrs. Vapla had legitimately won through some kind of primary, fair democratic process, we would have all jumped up and been beating drum and supported her. I'm a UP partisan, but I have a conscience. I'm not going to see that other people wanted an opportunity to run. They were prevented from running, and then I'm going to go jump in the street and be supporting the person. No, that's not how the world's supposed to work. So this is why they do these things. It's so that they can get away with controlling who the candidates are. And the representative by-elections and the senatorial by-elections that were leading up to the 2023 presidential selection were a prelude to what is happening now. They make these decisions without any correct process.
The almighty political leaders.
Yes. Even the decision for Talia Uri to run, without any other person being given the opportunity to run on CPP ticket. There was no competition.
And let me stop you. And that's why really I thought that this thing was not, this document change was not out of the ordinary. This looked like the modus operandi of the CPP.
The difference here, though, is that in the previous situations, everyone was aware that they were sitting at the table and dividing up opportunities.
This one they are aware too, and they are just trying to burn.
The reason I know that they were the reason I know that they were not aware that these changes were made is because there is a significant difference between. In fact, there should be zero tolerance. If you're an attorney, there's what's called zero tolerance. There should be zero tolerance for any changes on a document after it's been signed. There's zero tolerance. You cannot change a letter. You cannot even make an edit to a typographical error without taking it back and saying, hey, there was a typographical error, so we had to redo it. Please initial these pages, please sign. All of us have gone to school. All of us have worked professionally. Most of us, I should say, have worked professionally. So we know how that works. There's zero tolerance. So you can't, to sit here and say that they knew, that's absolutely not true. So Numbly got up there and spoke today. I believe her. Do I think that she conducted herself professionally through this process? No. There's some responsibility there. There's a reason you do things correctly so we don't end up in situations like this. But at the same time, we're not going to pretend that this didn't happen. We're not going to pretend that these documents were not altered.
Yeah.
Because it's clear that they made that the changes that were made occurred without the knowledge of the others, and the discrepancy between the signed amended document that had already left the legal review and what was submitted to the National Election Commission.
Thank you.
There was a discrepancy, and the report confirmed it, and that is that, and we need to deal with it.
Thank you. And I was also wondering, why is it that we don't have these three documents side by side? It's like we have the document that was signed on May 19. We have the lawyer's amended version, and we also have the filed version that Mr. Cummings filed to the NEC. Can the CPP put these three documents up so that we can just see them and read them for ourselves? But anyway, that's another thing. Let me talk about the response from the ANC. The first time when this happened, what we heard was nothing changed, right? Nothing changed. It almost reminded me of what the politicians do here. Sometimes they are caught in a scandal and their first reaction is nope, 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 only to find out that whenever more digging is done and they come out apologizing. The first thing we saw with the ANC was this document, right? In simple English, nothing changed. The whole investigation showed that Alexander Cummings not changed nothing. You rely on Cummings, yeah? UP said one document was in color and the other one in black and white, so they're going, let them go. Euro one forced Baka to make him vice president, so UP one leave the CPP and all that. So that was the first one. It came out, said nothing changed. Then after the report came out today saying, yes, you changed it, Mr. Cummings on Facebook wrote this. Despite the strong sentiments of feeling provoked, often alone and without choice, but to fight back for their and my hard-earned reputation, and given the fact that the ANC and I did alter the framework agreement, but acted honorably in registering the CPP, our partisans and supporters have accepted and agreed to step down. So watch the underlying one. The ANC and I did alter. Moments later, that post was brought down and this version came up. Despite the strong sentiments of feeling provoked, often alone and without choice, but to fight back for their and my hard-earned reputation, and given the fact that the ANC and I did not alter the framework agreement, but acted honorably. So that it moved from did alter to did not. The only thing Mr. Cummings did not change is the MINE to MY, perhaps, who have done it that way too, who are actually correcting grammar and other things. Another thing you see there is I did not alter it, but I alter So the but still remain. In the first one, the but contrasted that even though I changed it, but I did it honorably. Here it says, even though I did not change it, but. So you won't use but like that, right? Two statements coming from Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings, Mr. Cooney. I know this is, I know the intelligentsia elite make the change, right?
Look, Dennis, please. Look.
You know, there was a debate. Way back, and Joe Biden said Rudy Giuliani's now and verb 9/11 is his verb, and 9/11. You know, so 9/11 was his verb, his noun and his verb. Mr. Cooney, intelligentsia is his noun, verb, and all of that. So you can proceed, sir. I know it's coming again. Intelligentsia.
Look, Dennis. To be honest with you, if the discussion the Liberian people are going to have is the infighting in the CCP about some kind of document that they're supposed to work on, then, we prefer that. But the Liberian people want to focus their lives and their intention on other things. What we're seeing here is a dress rehearsal of what will happen in a CPP-led government. The Liberian people are aware of that. The infighting, the intellectual exchanges, the battle as to who know more than the other, the bitterness, the envy, the accusations and counter-accusations, attacking people's lifestyle, attacking people's families. That's what you will see.
The one that's going on in CDC West.
That's what you will see.
So, Mr. Cooney, what do you make of these two statements?
These two statements again, my sister called when I like, look, the people, they know too much book, they think they can confuse everybody. You see, and sometimes the reason why I speak against it, they don't even see it as a problem. They see that despite these things, they are entitled to lead. It is their sense of entitlement that I'm against. They don't say, oh, look, we made mistake and this and that, but they still feel that, we are better leaders because we have this. It's that sense of entitlement. So for me, it doesn't really, like I said, nothing has surprised me. And you look at the framework document, look at, some of us were not there. What kind of political party people come together with all these exclusions? Limitations of people's rights, limitations of participation. You are a potential government in waiting. But your document you bring in, if it doesn't exclude this person, it prohibit this, it prohibit that. You want to tell me the CPP, with all the land people that are there, they don't understand the Constitution to know when it will violate somebody's right to prevent that person from running? If the person left the CPP, they got to go ask the election commission. The election commission don't interpret our laws. The very action of the election commission is subject to interpretation. But they're telling us now that they got to go to the election commission will get an advice. Don't they have people that will do the research as to when,
Yeah, that was surprising too.
So, I'm seeing total confusion.
I want to agree with you.
Mm-hmm. I see a complete confusion in the CPP thing. And, the Liberian people will make their decision. Do we settle for this educated confusion?
Oh, God.
This intellectual...
we are not drawing contrast with
he's trying to sound like a broken record. All his children going to school, I'm sure. He said all his children go to school.
Are we going to settle for this confusion in this intellectual group? Or are we going to settle with our steady development that is going on in this group?
We'll come to that point to see.
Okay.
I want us to also discuss the opportunity cost of this framework, of the discussion, or this endless discussion on the framework document.
But before we come to that point, though, before,
let me go to Mohammed now. Just for 30 seconds each, let's look at what Mr. Cummings has said, right? With those two conflicting statements, I did it, I didn't do it, what is going on? Is he confused? Is he being managed, in such a way that he's saying something, for it before being against it? What's going on in Mr. Cummings' head?
Yeah, Dennis, you hit the nail on the head. It's for a, one of those things like in one of the campaigns in the United States, I was for it before I was against it. So this is the kind of thing, right? He's trying too hard to just, you know, get this nomination. He's fighting too hard. And this fight, and because of that, he is now really confused. He's overmanaged, I think, in my view. He is overmanaged. So now he's, they're contrasting statement from the same source. And this is one of the most bizarre situations in, Liberian, opposition Liberian, political history. You know, in recent times, we've never seen anything like this. And so, like I said, Mr. Cummings has a lot of explaining to do. And I will, if I were Mr. Cummings, I would now set up a shop. I would now set up a vibrant public relations campaign to, beat back, some of this, assault on him. Look at the source of this accusation. For God's sake, it came from Benani Yuri. Benani Yuri, who has no who has, a very bad reputation in Liberia. So now, Mr. Cummings, instead of fighting back, he's subjecting himself to this vicious assault from Benani Yuri. So it's up to him to still continue to be in the mix or be left out of this. And as I see it, there is tremendous cost associated with it. So I think that he may now be on the outside looking in to this nomination already. He was in trouble because, it was said that he didn't have a base. And so all of this conspires against him now. So he really has a lot to do.
Quickly, Carl, is Mr. Cummings' political career for this election, is he done? Or is he going to recover from this?
I mean, people are done when they say they're done. This is how he wants to run his campaign, and these are the people, the advisors he's chosen to surround himself with. The framework document for me, that was a straw that broke the camel's back for me. And that's where I've decided, I've made decisions based on the way that document was written, about whether or not I'm going to back CPP going forward, unless there's some major changes. We were talking earlier about the health clause being written in there. There are 3 things that qualify for the Constitution, someone to be president. You must be a natural born citizen. This is Article 52, Section A, a natural born citizen of not less than 35 years of age. It doesn't say you can't be too old. It says you should not be younger than 35, and you must be born in Liberia, which all of these people are. You must have property valued no less than $25,000. It doesn't specify what kind of property. It doesn't say if it must be real property, if it must be a vehicle. It doesn't say anything like that. But we've interpreted it to mean land or a home or something. And you must be a resident in the Republic for 10 years prior to your election, continuously for 10 years, provided that the president and vice president also should not come from the same county. You don't need to put in a framework document any provisions more rigid than what the Constitution allows, or you're going to be hindering someone's constitutional right to run for office. There are provisions in the Constitution where someone can be, the House can say that someone is no longer competent to maintain their role as president. But to write in the document that you must be in good health, that is just, to me, was an intentional and deliberate, by the people who put it together. It was an attack looking at, the older candidate that they feel isn't as well as the other candidate, and that's unconstitutional. And then they're telling us that these legal luminaries, they call them, these great lawyers reviewed these documents, and that didn't stand out, that this whole damn, excuse my language, thing should be pulled out of this document, because the Constitution is what tells us who is qualified to run for president. Right. And they kept it there and just changed the wording. And then they changed the wording again when they submitted it to NEC, and NEC didn't reject it. let's talk about why the National Election Commission did not reject the document when they received it. You know, everybody all along the way is just acting like they ate their school fees. You know, if I was sitting at NEC, I was going to send the document. There was all these people this document passed through their hands, and nobody said, this is silly.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder what the CDC document looks like too, for the Coalition for Democratic Change.
Why are you worried about the CDC?
Why you worry about
Because the people in power, maybe the document that they had put together said they should remove everybody from government and replace them with seditions.
I don't
For
think.
all we know, and we see it before. They have a document. They're keeping it secret.
Yeah.
Pakumi, they're smart. They're not foolish like us. They're keeping their thing in under wraps because they don't want to be, you know, picked apart the way that we're picking apart the CPP. You know, we would not have that luxury. So Pakumi, they got sense more than us in that regard. They know how to keep their secrets.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, what we're going to talk about is the opportunity cost. Right now, there is an opportunity cost for me being here because according to the economists, they say the real cost of anything is what you're supposed to be doing. So by me being here, there is a cost for it because I'm supposed to go do car shopping since I had a car accident, right? So that's the real cost. The papa is supposed to be sleeping. That's a cost. So
the real cause I missed my daughter call, you know, and she just had to text me that she's bringing my grandkids over tomorrow.
You see?
What a blessing.
So the actual cost of us discussing the CPP document and being buried in it, why we are doing this, the president is performing the sexually explicit Ghana high life. The city is dirty.
The rape song.
Right.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
Ritualistic killings is through the roof. So what is the opportunity cost of discussing just CPP document framework, and we're not paying attention to something else? That will come when we come right back. We'll take a commercial break.
As business persons, we worry about safety of our money to avoid it being stolen, making mistakes when counting money, making mistakes when giving people change, receiving theater money, forced money, or counterfeit money. eWallet is not just for money transfer. It enables electronic commerce and online marketplace, electronic payments and money transfer. Bring your store, market, shop, school, or company to eWallet online marketplace. Customers all around the world can buy your products anywhere, anytime. Get free electronic cashier and point of sale on your phone. Know how much your sales agents or cashiers are selling daily, weekly, and monthly. So not be afraid because all your money on your phone is already at the bank. You can stay wherever you are and pay your taxes and subscription bills. eWallet also accepts Master or Visa card. Payment is easy and fast. Fast calculations, no cheating, no mistakes, and no theater money business. eWallet shows Liberian dollars and US dollars balance anytime you open it. No special code needed. It's user-friendly, like every other social media platform. eWallet is in partnership with GT Bank and powered by Tama Corporation.
Account already for eWallet, and you sure won't regret it. All right. I spoke about the opportunity cost. Anytime you were doing something, you were not doing something, that's the real cost. So we have been for a month now, it's about CPP framework. So in fact, the opposition is not even holding the government accountable. They were just here, you know, they are lobbying with, you know, paying money. Meanwhile, a report came out today said Monrovia is the dirtiest capital in Africa. Okay, ritualistic killings through the roof. Whether people are lying or IG say they are lying, whatever the case. So the time we spent on CPP document, we are not doing something else. Let me start with Mr. Chevy, what is the true cost of all this CPP wahala?
I know why you started with me, but listen. So while the opposition is bickering, and in the midst of all of this, George Weah is having himself a vacation, a very nice time. We just witnessed George Weah um, had a birthday bash, right? Where Liberians who can't afford 50 cents a day are buying gifts for the president. If this is
Yeah.
not criminal, I don't know what is. So what we just witnessed is another display of extravagance in the midst of poverty. So you have the president of Liberia, who while Liberians are dying, the hospitals are inadequate. People have to be flown to Ghana and other places. Then the elites, the ruling elite, George Weah and his millionaires, multimillionaires, have to fly to the United States for their medical checkups. All of this is going on while the CPP is bickering among themselves. While we're witnessing the synergy that's held the CPP together for these couple of years is quickly dissipating. They're not talking about the economy. They're not talking about the educational system now that's in a doldrum. They're not talking about the ritualistic killings that are going on all across the country. So what you have is that the opportunity, you mentioned opportunity cost. That's the opportunity cost. Liberians are suffering, and the opposition is not talking about this because they are very busy with this one framework document. Already the opposition was not saying anything. So what has happened now is that this has tremendously assisted George Weah. George Weah, as I mentioned before, does not need another lifeline, but he's getting lifeline after lifeline from this collective opposition. And it's a shame what's going on. And I have to go back to this whole birthday thing. We have our colleague Wilma Coney on here who has supported this kind of thing, who has supported this level of corruption in Liberia. I mean, it's amazing how individuals like Mr. Coney, who are very educated, to support something like this. It's a disgrace for all of us. We have to be ashamed of what's going on. The president of the republic, it has a gender minister. I haven't heard Peaceful City Tar in years, but there she was the other day in the rain, organizing these women, having these women to bring presents to the president of the republic, and the president of the republic is taking these gifts from poor citizens who cannot afford their meals. This is criminal, and the opposition is not talking about this. So this is the thing, and it's very, very, very serious. The price of rice is going up. Everything, commodities, everything is going up, and the opposition is not talking about it. Instead, they are so busy and focused on this CPP framework document. So when you juxtapose the CPP framework document and what's going on, it's not even close. It's not close. What the president is doing is more is serious than, I would say, the CPP framework document. The one with the CPP framework document. So it'll be interesting to see how Mr. Cooney again come up and attack the intelligentsia, because they have nowhere to go but to attack educated people. This is their game. That is a game, and we understand. Those of us who are independent, some of us, some in the opposition, we understand their game. So we're not going to fall. We're not going to fall for this. We have to say it like it is, and it's criminal.
Thank you. I know Mr. Cooney has a response. Mr. Cooney, there was a post. If you look at the rape cases are still surging, but even the media. I mean, how long have we spent on discussing a framework document that makes no sense, that people are changing for nothing? To you, what's the true cost of
So
this
let me make a couple of points, and I'm going to largely ignore my brother here because he's just reciting talking points that he thinks people should hear. But if you ask me honestly, the true cost, the opportunity cost of discussing the CPP document is zero. Zero. Nothing they were doing. Nothing. They were not doing anything to change condition in Liberia. The only thing that brought them together that they've always been doing is how to get Weah out of office. That doesn't bring any relief to any Liberian that may be facing challenges. So if you tell me in terms of opportunity cost, it's zero. Like you say, you got to move from one activity to another activity. But if you weren't doing anything, there can be no opportunity cost, even if you are distracted, because you are not doing anything. They are not contributing. There is no vision from them. Like I indicated, the discussion we have here is not some philosophical, some vision thing that we're talking about. What we discuss here is how to position one another for power. So we now, the cost is zero. But the point I wanted to make is that, again, I look at the CPP as a potential government in waiting. They got all these laundry lists of accusations against the government. How they're going to do better, they're going to do things differently. Now, by their own investigation, not my investigation, their own investigation, they've determined that Mr. Cummings or the ANC is responsible for the alteration to the framework document. What's going to be the penalty? He's just going to walk free? I mean, what we've been talking about, the culture of impunity. Can the CPP demonstrate something that they don't support impunity? Can they? Or is there going to be kumbaya moment and say, okay, you know what? Our big focus is to take John Weah from office, so let's just forget everything. Let's go for Weah.
That's a good point, Mr. Cummings.
Yeah, these are the things we're talking about.
Right. You see the document, so what? So what are you going to do about it? So that's a good point.
Yeah, so, but having said that, to be honest with you, even if it were demonstrated that Mr. Cummings altered document in the ASTE meeting, Mr. Cummings is the best shot for the CPP. John Weah can defeat any of the CPP candidates, but Mr. Cummings is their best shot. You gave me Cummings' so-called alteration of the framework document and give me Oman Bweka 12 years of a failed leadership. That is an easy decision to make. So lastly, let me go to my brother talking about the president's birthday. Hey, my brother, the people of Liberia, they show love for their president. Nobody want my data to get the president gift. You just so envious about the outpouring of love that the people get for this president. People giving them their block on dollar. You from the southeast, you know the meaning of block on dollar. That is the most precious lapa I want people keep in their trunk that they can give to you either when you're getting married, when you're graduating, to appreciate you. They were not doing it out of mandate. They're doing it out of love.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings, because our history, you remind me of the point why people should love Tubman. But go ahead and your thought.
Yeah, so that was sent a shockwave in the opposition that, despite all of our rhetoric, is this how the Liberian people showing love for this man? I see why Mohammed is panicking. This is why panic is kicking.
Something wrong with you,
in the ring. Even in the ring. They are there with the president.
He means nothing he say. He means absolutely nothing he say.
Even in the ring.
We have our numbers on the board for you to call. We have 15 minutes for this show. Let me go to call, talking about opportunity.
Let me end before you go to call, because so now I'll be talking my thing. She said, look, everything I say here, I mean it into my soul, in my soul. You see, let me just make one statement.
I believe you mean it. That's why
I mean it. Let me make one statement before you go to call. Let me make one statement. You see the man George Weah? George Weah has a life of always being doubted. Everywhere he appears, people doubt him.
Like Forrest Gump.
And in the end, he end up proving himself more than the doubters. So they can continue to doubt him. In the end, George Weah will be an iconic Liberian president.
Thank you.
And the history of his leadership will be written in Liberian history.
For me, I have no doubt that he could sing that sexually explicit Ajwa.
The rape song. Mr. Kui, you're entertaining, and unfortunately, the situation in Liberia is not a laughing matter. And it's not it reminds me of what sparked the French Revolution. Let them eat cake. Living in an ivory tower and not realizing the amount of suffering that is occurring and realizing the burden of responsibility that falls on your shoulders when you stand up and say, I will lead you. I will lead you. I will lift you out of your despair. This is the promise this man made to the country. And he wanted to lead. Nobody forced Weah to be president. He wanted to be president. And he told the people, I will deliver you from your poverty and your despair. He delivered himself and his cronies from poverty and despair. They're all shining. Children are dying. They're all shining. People suffering is increasing. Poverty is increasing. And he's enjoying his birthday. He's singing songs and he's enjoying his life. You talk about entitlement. Somebody who was an icon, is an icon, an international superstar, felt entitled to sit on top of the country as its ruler because people were starstruck. This is and for the opposition, I think what you really wanted me to talk about, Dennis, is the opposition sitting in a position where they are closing the door to competition is what got us to where we are. This is why the framework document is ridiculous. This is why the conversation around leadership and opposition is ridiculous. It's because when they formulated the CPP, they closed out any possibility of other Liberians within the constituent political parties being able to stand up and vie for the presidency. If the door had been open to competition, the conversations would change. People would have to bring the best out of themselves. When you compete, you have to do what? You have to put your best foot forward. When there is no real competition, it's just between two old retired guys. They don't need to impress anybody. They just need to get on top of the ticket. They don't need to sell a dream or sell a vision. They just need to win the nomination for presidency. So you don't see anyone with a great future picture that they've painted for us to focus on. Nobody is trying to, light our proverbial fire. Nobody's trying to inspire us to do better, to be greater. They're more concerned about winning the nomination. And so unfortunately, I have to agree with Mr. Cooney on some of what he said, not the gross exaggerations of the president's success, but on the criticism of the CPP. He is correct in that these two retired men have made sure that they are the only options for an organized opposition. That is unfortunate.
Yeah, but Carl,
That is
they keep asking, I mean, who's the potential? Everybody is like dancing for the people you call retired men.
because if you read the CPP framework, it's by design. They do. Listen, the other day someone asked me, they said, oh, you keep talking about competition. Who else? Nobody else put their hand up. When has anyone else been invited to put their hand up? When you have the Democratic primaries, they organize this. People who are in the party get up and say, you know what? I think I could be president. And they go to an organized event and they make their case and they talk about policies. They talk about ways and ideas that they have to transform the country. This is how the world works. I lived in Antigua before. This is the same thing, even though Antigua's had, basically the same similar monopoly on power. But at least, when people are competing for votes, they get out there, within their constituency. But in the CPP, it's just assumed that it's between Cummings and Boycott. And therefore, they're attacking each other. Their supporters are attacking each other. It becomes personal. They're insulting one another instead of trying to inspire the Liberian people to do better, to be greater, instead of holding the ruling party accountable for the uncountable missteps. Monrovia is the deadiest city. We ain't talking about that. We're talking about somebody's, fingering, as they say, a document. Listen, our people, Liberians, deserve better. We have suffered for a very long time.
Thank you,
This
Carl.
is unacceptable.
Thank you. We're going to go to our calls and take two calls. Before that, let me read a few comments here. Samuel Hammer, Liberians claim that any standard bearer of CPP can defeat Mr. Weah. If this is true, why are they assuming that Cummings has a standard bearer cannot defeat Weah? Why only JNB? Dave Jar says, Dave, full disclosure, is my brother. George Weah can only sail high in Liberia, Kuni. Only Liberians could have such an ill-informed and clueless man president of their nation. Liberia is a failed nation. James Charlotte, this old man Wilma Kuni does not love Liberia. Thank God that you have almost all of your immediate families, kids, grandkids, etc., living abroad. Sadly, you have no genuine love for Liberia.
Amen.
Damian Sakama, Weah makes the presidency look so easy. It's like going to a bar. Just shameful to see these educated people defending that. I didn't get it that clear. Abby Tyler, standing in the rain to give the president gifts. Today, they praised it. Yesterday, it was wrong. Thomas Awaji, FOL got their own Kef Hassan.
Don't insult Pakumi. I'm not going to take it.
Ronald Free, when they celebrating a birthday and getting a gift transmit into criminality, the political optics may not be good, but nothing is criminal about that. Saying otherwise is one big word. Oh, I see where this thing comes from. Francis Wilson said, Kuni is the Kef Hassan for this show. He's just has delusional.
No, man. That's not
Francis,
true.
why? Mr. Kuni, you don't have love yet today.
It's good.
Look at this old man.
Hey, man.
Sam Wallow, Kuni wants Kuni because
bad too.
Kuni wants Kuni because he knows he's an easy target to knock off.
Oh God.
Let me take the last comment here. William Blay, I'm so disappointed with the CPP. Instead of holding the Weah government feet to the fire for all that is going on in the country, they are holding and pulling over framework crap. Let's take some calls here. And Tavina said, Kuni, let's discuss the opportunity cost of the recent birthday celebration amidst ritualistic killings, increased poverty and rape, etc. Don't change the talking points. Mr. Kuni, a lot of beta balls for you. I'll give you a chance to respond, but let me take a few calls here. The first one is Jimmy Eastman. Jimmy, you're live. Go ahead.
Hey, nice conversation, and I really appreciate your studio guests, Ms. Famula and Mr. Kuni, as usual, the wise old man, and our intelligent Mr. Muhammad Sharif. Everything you guys saying, I do appreciate. But you know, I think we're missing a picture here. Whenever you see politicians talk, they always criticize what people are doing, what the government is doing. But people decide which party they identify with based on how they feel about the social groups that comprise the party base. There's a party dynamics they're not considering. They're only looking at, okay, the criticism. But are you really engaging the party dynamics? Okay, there are two basic things in the party dynamic. One is the core political values they represent, and the second is the is how they feel about the party. Again, the base. So if you're going to have a party and it's going to be successful, people are going to have to be emotionally attached to you. And what are you putting out there for people to be emotionally attached? And like Mr. Kuni said, what are the principles you espousing? How do you plan to run this government? It's going to be a broad-based government? Is it going to be a government that is transparent? Is it going to be one that is more decentralized? You're not promoting what you want to do. So what are we going to gravitate to when we don't know who you? When the base is not being clearly defined yet, and not all your political views.
Well,
so I don't think somebody, a smart politician, is among them who knows how to garner party popularity. So I think, like Mr. Kuni you say, it's a exercise in futility. That's what it appears to be.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Let me give a chance to Mr. Aliu Kamara. Mr. Aliu, you're live.
Well, let me tell you, Dennis, I'm always using prepaid phone. I'm the only on the line for so long. My data is really running out.
That's okay. Well, JMB will put it back. Go ahead.
Let me say hi to my progressive uncle, Weah Connie. Thank you so much for everything. But I'll go after my brother first, Sherry. I don't know what's wrong with Sherry sometimes with the color business. You understand? This is the man. First of all, let me just tell you, Benin does not have bad record in Liberia. When Liberians needed job in the 90s, Benin provided job for Liberians. Okay? When no Liberian were physically brave to carry multilateral companies to Liberia, Benin did that. But some of us who were in Liberia throughout the Civil War, we never saw Benin physical participation in the war. So to make statement that Benin got bad record in Liberia, I was in Liberia throughout the war. I left Liberia to Europe and America at the age of 31. So I know exactly who got bad record, who ain't got bad record. He's not just a rebel. The same my brother Sherry again is saying that Cummings should fight back, and Cummings say that it allowed Benin to do this, that. In other words, they are in denial, even though Cummings did something clandestine. He did something, I don't want to use the word surreptitious because then I think that's an understatement, but what he did was criminal in nature, and somebody is saying that Cummings should stand up and fight. Fight for what? Should you fight when you are guilty, or should you take responsibility for your actions? People say Alexander Cummings is a clean guy. Joseph Juma Baka is dirty, he corrupt, 12 years he stole, he did that, he did this. Alexander Cummings has done not only a mischievous thing, Alexander Cummings has done one of the most incriminating thing in that country, and then people who sympathize with him are telling him to fight. Fight for what? That is very shameful.
Thank you.
And Mr. Coney, let me just tell you this. If you are thinking that the CPP will make any mistake by bringing Alexander Cummings, who doesn't have any base, any strength politically in the country, so that your judge will can retain power, you are getting it all wrong.
Thank you, Ali.
Joseph Yuma Baka is the senator for the CPP, and that is how it's going to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Two more comments here, and then you can come in. James Charlotte, Brother Dennis Jai and FOL are so good analysts and know how to break and give us the very important information. I can agree with that more. For tonight, I salute these great panelists and analysts. However, Mr. Wilman Cooney must decide to speak for Liberia or for a corrupt leader, President George Weah. Christopher Kamara said that today you know Liberians are dying, and another dishonest opposition. Mr. Cooney, your response. You have a lot there on the table for you.
Well, look, as usual, I welcome the comments, especially the ones that are critical, because sometimes we learn from critical comments, even if we don't agree.
Sorry, Mr. Cooney, hold your thought. Let me just get the last caller for the night. Hamilton, caller, your name and where you calling from?
My name is Leo Johnson, and I'm calling from Hamilton, Canada.
Leo, go ahead. You're live.
Yeah, thank you. I've been listening to your panelists, and I've heard multiple times the indication that government in Liberia seems to be a big part of the problem, if not the largest slice of the problem. At the same time, I'm hearing people showing ways about how government can provide the solution, which is confusing to me. Because for a very long time, we've consistently said government is incapable, government is not able to provide a solution or whatever. And at the same time, we are asking for the solution from government. Can your panelists throw light on how else we can see Liberia being successful in spite of government failures and excesses? Do they know of any other way that we can make the country work in spite of government excesses and government failures. But also, to another point, Mr. Jad, I would actually like to make, when it comes to issues, whether it's around race or some of the issues we talk about, the president's birthday and all of that, I think there is a certain exceptionalism from Liberians in the diaspora that tend to come across in a very condescending manner when we talk about people in Liberia and the way they go about making decisions. People in Liberia are trying to survive. Their options are limited. They do what they do because those are the only choices they have. Those of us in the diaspora, we haven't gone to Liberia to demonstrate and show better. If anything, our track record has been extremely poor. So how can we keep saying to Liberians in Liberia, people should behave better, make different decisions, and the government should behave this way, when we cannot even get a Liberian association in the diaspora to function properly? We're fighting over each other every day. When we live in countries where governments work.
Thank you, Leo. Mr. Sherry, there's a mail here for you too. Esther Flomo says, Sherry, you are using 2-minute words and achieving nothing. Esther comes back. Sherry, wearing glasses does not make you smart at all. Your appearance looks like a small monkey. Come on now.
Why do you even read that, sir?
Yeah, a mentor Flomo. We don't use that language here. Let me get Kalebo Gonglo for the last call. Kalebo, you're live. You have 30 seconds.
Let me get Kalebo Gonglo for the last call. Kalebo. Yes. Thank you, Dennis. I'm not surprised at Woman Kuni position, persistent position in support of indefensible action by the Weah administration. But before I just conclude, continue with my statement, I would like to agree with all our analysis. There is fundamental issue that I think the way the CPP framework was carved, I think it was set out to fail. So all of the issues that come out now are issues that it was easy for someone to point out from the beginning. Typical example, the Rainbow Alliance. They go to the CPP at some point and say, look, we want to join the CPP. They stop them. They said they can't come in. It's closed. The doors are closed. And the full party can be here. And the full party will only have to choose between two men. Two men who are probably about 70. Okay? That's a bad option. So CPP framework was not set to show leadership and unite the opposition. So I agree with Call on that. But on the question of Woman Kuni analysis, persistent defense for Weah, I see it from the lens of regional politics and tribal politics. Nothing more and nothing less.
Wow.
Woman Kuni is look at his record. When he served at the National Security Agency under Dr. Sawyer, he can defend his record. His entourage was also of his ethnic group. So you see, we are in that light. It doesn't see anything wrong with Weah. That is Woman Kuni record. So many people who don't know this, that is his record. So what he's doing is consistent with what he's doing all along in politics and in public life.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. That was for Kuni. I have something here for myself too. Aliu Samba said, Dennis, I'm very sorry for your loss. I believe you were very disappointed in the man you support. I've been telling you these things behind closed doors, but you refuse to listen to me. The most honest man in the collaboration has always been the former vice president. Check the history. Join Greater Liberia in making the former vice president the next president of the Republic of Liberia. Francis Wilson, the problem with Mr. Kuni's repeated nonsense about the intelligentsia is Liberians tend to jump on sound bites, and his negative repetition about people with intelligence causes our children to aspire or aim in the wrong direction. They will jump on that instantly. The book people know nothing. Let's lift up ignorance. He needs to stop. He knows better. Mr. Kuni.
Yeah, like I said, look, I welcome all the criticism. Some are really irrelevant, they don't worth commenting on. But the last comment by my sister, the point I try to make when I talk about the intelligentsia elite, is that we must hold them accountable. We must not give them a free pass. And this is what we do. Because we assume people are educated, we don't ask questions. We don't hold them accountable for their leadership, for their stewardship. We willingly surrender ourselves to their misrule. That is the concept. And this is what we must change. Let us expect more from people who are more competent, from people who are more educated. And if they are more competent and more educated and they perform less than that, let us question them. Let us demand them to perform. If you call that an attack on education, then you must say we got different definition. And I can't stop you to understand the way you want to understand things coming from me. I can only tell you what I mean. This is the point. People get educated for a reason. Education is for a reason. It's not just to listen on a curriculum, on a CV. You get educated to solve societal's problem. You get educated to bring light to people. So if we have educated people that are not doing these things, we should not give them a pass because they are educated. If you want to give people power just because they are educated, trust me, Mr. Kune will not be part of you. And my criticism of the intelligentsia elite is that at some point, I think that they will come to apologize to the Liberian people for the decades of misrule, for the horrendous leadership that they've provided in our country over time. You can make all the criticism you want. You think the country had paved road and all of a sudden it disappears? You think we had a workable healthcare system throughout the country and one day it disappeared? You think our education system was good and all of a sudden it disappeared? These are problems that are very, very part of our country. You speak about the 174 years. I'm saying let us not pass leadership to people simply because they are educated. And because they are educated, we surrender to their misrule, we surrender to their incompetence. You know, look, everything we say here, we are saying the same thing. We talk about the people, this former government being a product of incompetence. Maybe when I say it, it sounds different. When others say it, maybe it is the same thing, but we're all saying the same thing here.
Quickly, Mr. Kune, maybe our definition. When you say intelligentsia elite, who are you referring to?
Intelligentsia elite are the so-called people in Liberia who feel that they are educated and they are socialized to the point where they can discount other people's education, to the point where they feel that they are so educated to even tell you that even though you're educated, but you're not educated enough. You know, they give themselves some brand name, you know. So that's the point. And because people believe that, when these people get into position of power, we don't criticize them. We don't demand anything because we surrender. We say, oh, that's the best we can get. So maybe it is the best we can get. I'm saying change your thinking.
Intelligentsia elite and educated people, are they the same people?
Intelligentsia elite and social elite, they got their social partners. And not everybody who is in the intelligentsia elite is educated, but the social partners, not all of them are educated. Some of them, they go through their higher social status where they form this bond with the elite, and two of them come together. Somebody who don't even have a degree because he's attached to the elite by way of socialization. We surrender to the person. We surrender to the person. We don't even question the person.
Just one last thing. Samuel Tue, Nathaniel McGill, are they intelligentsia elite?
They are members of the grassroots that are fighting against the elite. and so let me complete my point, because then we will bring these questions.
I just want to be clear so that we're all on the same page.
So and this is a point. Many people talk about the election of George Weah, the Liberian people. What you saw the Liberian people doing in 2017 was a revolt against the intelligentsia and social elite. Until they understand
then why I went to runoff election.
Thank you. Let me learn. Until they understand it and find a solution, I'm telling you that grassroots governance will continue. And as they are fighting over their framework document, you say what we are doing. We get news that the asphalt pavement for the Ganda to Saclépie Road, Saclépie to all these things, they are working. There are little development going on. And you can tell the people that nothing going in Liberia, but developments going on in other sectors of the country.
Thank you. And Mohammed and Call, 1 minute each to respond to our many comments and callers, and then we can close the broadcast tonight. But let me get your take on the comments, and you have 1 minute. Let me start with Call.
So, what Councillor Gunglo just talked about, as far as being in agreement with what I said about these documents, if someone with a neutral and an objective mind had reviewed them, they would have sent everyone back to the drawing board. I just want to emphasize that all of the people, the leaders of CPP, are in fact competent and intelligent. I think it was intentional. I think they had an agenda, and the agenda was to close the doors to competition and to have complete control, and not have anyone else at the table. And that also went to the people that they selected to put on the secretariat. I agree that it's good to have people you trust, but when you're trying to do the right thing, you bring people that you might not even know that are technically capable of doing the things that you need done. Every single person that sat at that table was a personal or a confidant or some kind of politically motivated person. And that even in politics, there's technical things that need to be done that cannot always be motivated by politics. And I've heard of a few of the callers talk about oh, Mr. Cooney this or that. Let me tell you something. Politics is about ideology. It's about vision. You don't just seek power. You shouldn't, I should say, just seek power for the sake of being powerful. The motivation for most people who in advanced societies who seek power is to advance a cause. It is you want power so you can advance a cause. And I want to see what this cause is. We talk about the betterment of Liberia. Do we want to unite our people? Do we want to, what are the solutions to solve poverty, to solve, ignorance, to solve miseducation? These are the things we should be talking about. And lastly, the caller that called from Canada, there are responsibilities. The reason we agree to be in a country and have a government, there are responsibilities that government has to its citizens that the citizens cannot fulfill. Citizens do not make policy. They elect people to do these things. And so to say, oh, why would they say the government corrupt? Why are we asking the government? Because it is their duty, it's their bounden duty to fulfill their responsibility to the people. So regardless of how incompetent they are, we must call them to order. And also, we must elect people that are capable of doing the things that we need done. So the responsibility falls on the citizens to elect people that are capable of doing what needs to be done. That's not happening. Mr. Weah is very, very entertaining. Mr. Weah is a superstar. Mr. Weah is no government leader. He is no head of state. I'm a fan of George Weah, but you know what? I'm suffering under his leadership, because that's not his area. And next time we go to the drawing board, we need to have not only a better leader we not only need to choose a better leader, we need to have better leaders to choose from. And this is why I constantly speak out against the CPP monopoly. We need to make sure we're giving everyone in the country, all of our capable citizens, an opportunity to run for office, fair and free opportunity to run for office, so that the cream can rise to the top, so we can select the best possible leader. And if that best possible leader is Mr. Boykai, which I'm, pretty sure it might end up being, great. But let's do so through a free and fair process. If it's Mr. Cummings, great. Same thing. Do it through a free and fair process, not to have, a white ballot primary where you just, celebrate yourself. It was an embarrassment.
Thank you. And I must apologize for reading some despicable comments here with insult. Our panelists here are very intelligent people. They take off their time to make this contribution to our country. So we should call them the respect. And it is not easy to be here and deliberate national issues. There's a lot of time and research and knowledge put into it. They have their families. Again, talking about opportunity cost, they could have been somewhere else doing something else, but they are here. And so we must respect them. And I do apologize for reading some comments that had some insults in it. Mr. Sharif, let's your 1 minute respond to the comments and the colors.
Oh, Dennis, you know my character. You know the kind of person I am. I am very, very resilient. You know me when we interacted on, the various Liberian listserv. I have heard worse about my person, about myself, about my family. I do not care one bit. I am going to continue to do what I do. So when you speak truth to power, when you speak about the ills of our society, when you speak about the corrupt administration that we have, then you have people who are benefiting from that corruption, who are the derivative of that corruption, attacking you personally. So that's not an issue that we even need to enter. That's not an issue that we even need to spend time to, try to. I don't want you to spend any time trying to extend any apology. I have for worse. I am going to continue to do what I do. So as we sit around here, talking about the opposition, right? Monrovia has been described today, in the last 48 hours at least, as the dirtiest capital city in Africa. And this is true. Some of us have been talking about this for a very, very long time. And now, what you have now is a European coming to our country and telling us that we are the dirtiest capital city in Africa. This is an insult to not only Liberians, but to all Black people. But we deserve the insult. I am an African. I am a Liberian. I am a patriot in that order. So I am going to speak not only of Liberian issues, but African issues. Dennis, you know what I have done over the years. I am going to continue to speak about the ills in our society. We have a president who is very, very incompetent. This president, as Cole said, and I 100% agree with her, this guy is an entertainer. I am a fan also, like Cole is, of Mr. Weah as a soccer player. He was the World Footballer of the Year in 1995. But being a World Footballer of the Year doesn't give you the intellectual capability to run a country. He is not equipped intellectually. He is not equipped sentimentally to run the country. George Weah, I have said, and I'm going to continue to maintain, that he is one of the most corrupt presidents in Liberian history. What we are seeing now is that George Weah is a multi-millionaire. And around George Weah, there's the small circle of men who call themselves, grassrooters, are now millionaires. Since when a multi-millionaire is a grassrooter? Samuel Toure, those guys, Eugene Nagbe, and some of those guys are millionaires. They are millionaires stealing Liberian money, being corrupt around George Weah, because George Weah does not know what he's doing. George Weah does not care about the Liberian people. If George Weah cared about the sufferings of the Liberian people, he will not have a birthday bash where ordinary Liberians are gifting him. You have a minister of gender who has done nothing all year. But here was George Weah's birthday party, and the minister of gender is actually there organizing these poor women. Okay, so I don't want to hear about, the Southeastern tradition of where, you have to give a leader a gift. This is a gift, and I heard that in some of the ministries, right, people working in these ministries were made, this is unsubstantiated, they were made to contribute towards getting gifts for George Weah. And if that's the case, I still maintain that is criminal. Corruption, stealing is criminal. One of the callers wanted to say, how is this criminal? When you steal, it's criminal. And so
thank you, Mr. Jerry. We're almost out of time. We are almost out of time. Let's take few of our announcements here. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock, we have the literary hour, rankings and grades, exploring the question of choice. That's about our schools. That will be on the literary hour with Dr. K. Moses Nawe and the Fulbright scholar Jackie Sayer. On Saturday at 7 p.m., the police and reports of ritualistic killings in Liberia will have the former deputy director of the police for CID affairs, Charles Ebu King. He was going to be here. And I'm going to be assisted by the former Deputy NSA Director, Mr. Wilmont Coney, as we explore the whole idea of this ritualistic killing, what the police supposed to be doing, what the police is doing. We're going to look at the IG's press conference and more. Don't miss it. And then on Sunday, we're going to have another interview with a legendary group called the Faith, Hope, and Love Trio. They will be here. There's a gospel artist started in the 80s, and they've been singing, and they are still singing. So join me, the host, on primetime Sunday, 6 o'clock. At this time, we're going to go to our last segment here, which is our Tabata session. And that's all the time. So within 5 minutes, we'll go around the room and say the greatest Tabata of this week. Let's start with Mr. Cooney.
Well, the greatest Tabata for this week is the infighting that is still in the CPP. I mean, it's just amazing that group of political leaders come together, can bring this kind of Tabata, on our country. Do we do a closing statement together with this, or just give the Tabata?
Yeah, just the Tabata.
Oh yeah, so the Tabata for the week.
Call.
The greatest Tabata. I'm not saying it again.
No, please, one more time, please. Just for the panelists, one more time.
I did do it for Mr. Cooney. The greatest Tabata for the week was me seeing government officials, members of the executive, members of the first branch of government, the legislature, wearing T-shirts with the president's image on it. It's not campaign time. It's his birthday. We're not a kingdom. We're a democracy. This is an abomination. It's a disrespect to our Constitution. It's a disrespect to the way our country was established and the purpose for which it was established. And it is an embarrassment that we have to conduct ourselves this way in front of our children. This hero worship, this sycophancy, it's sickening. And that for me is the greatest Tabata, wearing the image of the president on your T-shirt, on the shirt because it's his birthday. Yeah. Absurd.
Mr. Sharif.
Yeah, the biggest Tabata for me is seeing the city mayor of Monrovia in rain boots and all these different, apparels, cleaning up the city. He's not a sanitation worker. He's the city mayor of Monrovia. Putting in place policies, right, that are environmentally friendly and that are enforceable throughout the length and breadth of Monrovia. So the city mayor does not know what he's doing. And so therefore he wear rain boots and walk around and picking up trash and all that different kind of thing in the midst of us now winning an award as the dirtiest city in Monrovia. That is the biggest Tabata of the week.
And Thomas Awaji is asking what Tabata means. Tabata means nonsense, complete foolishness. And Ansoni CA has, he sent me a message. He's the host of the Hour of Politics. He has his Tabata that he wants to share. So for Ansoni CA, his Tabata is the van. And we're going to have a picture of the van that Mr. CA wanted us to show. The Blue Army Coalition Forces protecting the revolution. So protecting the revolution. We have a van for that purpose. And Ansoni CA believes that's the greatest Tabata.
What revolution? We had a democratic election. Shame on CDC. What revolution?
The biggest Tabata for me is the president standing in the rain. Who does that? The president standing in the rain to receive gifts. Believe to have been manipulated, if not coerced, to give gifts. But that is not really what I'm looking at. But for God's sake, be in the house. You are the president. It's your birthday. Stay under the roof. To me, that's the greatest Tabata. We have 2 minutes. So for 4 of us, 30 seconds each. your concluding statement. What's the way forward for the CPP? What do you see? What's the future of Mr. Cummings? Where is this all going to end? Is it going to end the CPP completely fractured? I mean, look in your crystal ball. What's the end game here? Mr. Sharif, you have 49 seconds.
49 seconds. So, Mr. Cummings is hurt by this, but as I stated earlier, Liberians do not vote on the issue. So if it were that Liberians were voting on the issues, then I would tell you that he's permanently politically incapacitated. But that is not the case. Liberians are not going to wake up next Monday to say, hey, he altered the document, because this is, remember, this is a very corrupt society. You have corruption at the top of the food chain. So you have the president who is very, very corrupt and not accountable to anybody but himself. You have the ministers around the president who are very corrupt. And therefore, this stuff filters down to the opposition. The opposition is no better than the ruling elite that we have now, than the corrupt elite that we have now. So this is not going to hurt him in terms of, a determining factor. Cummings is hurt by other factors. Other members of the opposition are saying that he doesn't have a base, and it doesn't seem like he has a base. So that is the real issue that he needs to confront. So the idea that if we just suppose the framework agreement, the author framework agreement, and what is going on the national scene with George Weah and the corruption and all the birthday bash and all of that stuff, that pales in comparison. The CC framework document pales in comparison to what is actually going on, the suffering and the degradation in Liberia.
Thank you. Dave just said the greatest Tabata is "We Are Singing," the 20th century song from Ghana, which also demeans women. Carl, your closing comments.
I mean, CPP has, the member parties have some of the most bright and promising Liberians. I think that we need to go back to the drawing board, reassess our vision, what it is that we really want to accomplish beyond just take power and do what with it. I believe in Liberia. I believe in Liberians. And I think that at the end of the day, we are going to find the solution. We have survived throughout our history much greater challenges than what we're faced with today. These little silly setbacks are minuscule, but I think it is extremely important that we speak truth, not only to power, but to the powerless and to those who seek power. Challenge people. There's nothing wrong with criticizing your leaders. There's nothing wrong with calling them out when they do wrong. When you blindly support and unconscionably support things that you see are wrong, you become part of the problems that you claim you want to solve.
Thank you.
And that's where I'll leave it.
Thank you. Mr. Kune?
Well, look, as I indicated here, what is occurring in the CPP is just a dress rehearsal for the kind of that function that will plague the country should they unfortunately get to power. They're going to be fighting, bickering, nothing else. They have not articulated any vision for the country besides they're juggling to take power in the country. But I don't think the battles are over. The battle in the CPP is not over. They have to resolve this issue of black voting, black delegates going to a convention. That's another sticky issue. And I sincerely believe that where the four political parties send their delegates freely to a convention, I can see a scenario where Mr. Alexander Cummings could emerge as the candidate for the CPP. So that's another fighting issue. But having said that, I'm actually encouraged this week. Dennis, for the first time, I heard my president echoing my prediction that this election will indeed be a first-round victory. The president predicted boldly that the opposition would be flogged mercilessly to the point where they will really be crying, vote raking. So I'm kind of excited that at least the president
sounds
believed
like premeditation.
The president believed in that, and that is a source of excitement for me. Once he believes it, we as a party can fight for that, and this these people framework document will sweep them in the first round. They will not even believe it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Conan. Thank you, Carl, and also thank you, the gentleman from Waplo Institute, Mr. Mohammed Sharif. We want to thank our viewers, the callers, those who commented. All this that we do here on Focus on Liberia matter because of you, our viewers. Keep your dial set here on Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we're going to leave you a song that says, "We are all Liberians." And that's the song that we all should remember, that in spite of our differences, whether you believe the framework document was altered or not, whether you believe the political future of Mr. Cummings has ended with this report or not, we are all Liberians. And it is incumbent upon all of us to do whatever it takes to make Liberia the greatest and the glorious land of liberty. Good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home. Liberia people. Liberia.